Hello and happy Thursday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead in my messy room as usual. Thank you for Andrew for pointing out just how messy my background is. Thank you. We are working on it. On my left, we got the wrapping paper. On my right, we got my wife's makeup. But you know what? We're gonna make things happen here. Mark, it's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, we obviously we missed you at the Christmas episode because you were in the Caribbean somewhere.
I was in St. Martin, sitting on a beach, and I think I told you this. I'm pretty sure I told you this, and you just kind of ignored it. And yeah, I was hanging out with my sister, sitting on a beach, chilling out, relaxing. I was hoping that I would have enough time that evening to get back to the hotel room because I did have high-speed internet in the hotel, and I was going to call in from there, but things didn't work out, and I missed it. Sorry.
Yeah, because at some point, I'm like, hey, we're gonna do this on this time, whatever, and you're like, okay, I think I can make that work. So I did not think that you were gonna try and make that work from out of the country. I just assumed like, hey, this is a good time, but it is what it is.
I think I did say I was going to be on a beach, and I think then you were really concerned about Caleb's being there way more than.
No, well,
I mean, he's
it happens.
way better. He's way handsomer, and I get it, totally get it.
So in fairness, one, he is more handsome, but two, with the whole college thing, and just like the amount of dates he's going on rapid fire, like it's just like the calendar that man's got to keep is just really, really tough. But speaking of busy calendars, we have the one man content machine. You know him from Naira Bets. You know him from his previous work on Trust the Prophets. You know him from giving impassioned speeches to about 12 viewers by himself for about 7 hours during Kentucky Derby and or Breeders' Cup coverage. The one and the only Matthew DeSantis. Matthew, how are you?
I'm doing great, guys. Thank you so much for having me. And I want to know a little bit more about this rapid fire dating that Caleb's going on. Is he meeting some ladies like Blake Lively in The Town type of are we getting some Southies in there, or are we getting some more highfalutin MIT types? I'd love to see a Caleb reality dating show.
There's the old adage of quality over quantity. Caleb is the inversive. It's quantity over quality. It's just rapid fire, as many dates as you can go on.
I don't want to spill too many details, but just sometimes the stories he tells. Do you know how when rich people and I'm sure if you're at the track, this has probably happened at some point. They start telling you a story, and in your head, you're like, I cannot relate to this whatsoever. No. My yacht, I had to go use my second yacht or something. Oh, darn,
Must have been
Caleb.
rough. Yeah.
Caleb tells us these stories, and I'm just like, I cannot relate to the issues that you are having where you need to balance this stuff out. I'm sorry, this was never a problem for me. It's I don't know. Good old Caleb, as Mark fist pumps Delta Downs somewhere.
My 2 getting up at 7-1, which is the better. I had 2 of the 5, and the 2 is much better.
There you go. Matthew, talk to us a little bit about what you got going on over at Naira Bets. I know, we talked a little bit around Christmas, and you had just, put out that Horse Player 101 stuff. Obviously, you're going to be doing a continuation of that. You've been doing your long shot of the day, which has been doing very well. You had a very, very nice streak going there for a bit. So, what else you got cooking over there?
Yeah, I mean, we on top of the stuff you said, we have weekly track stats updates, which I think is really fun if you're playing. So I keep track of all the races at Gulfstream Park, Tampa Bay Downs, Oak Lawn, Santa Anita, and Aqueduct. And I do an analysis every week that looks at how favorites are performing on different surfaces, different distance, different racing levels. And then I also look at the winning trips on different surfaces, racing levels, distance, and levels, etc. And even at Oaklawn and Aqueduct, I actually have it disaggregated by track condition because there's so many, so oftentimes we're dealing with muddy, sloppy, sealed, wet tracks on those two race courses. So it's something that's updated every week. It's a free resource on Naira Bets. Encourage people to check it out. It's something that if you play those tracks, it can sometimes clue you into where favorites really hard to get around and where can I beat chalk and feel pretty good about it. And what sort of winning trips are going to be the best. There's a horse that we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show, Senior Buscador, who, one of the reasons, not to jump to that point, but like he's a horse that I was very much so against at the Cigar Mile because, quite frankly, just nobody was closing in one-turn miles at Aqueduct. And so when you start looking at the data, you're going, this horse can be great, but that's not the sort of winning trip that we've been seeing. So it can be something that helps you a little bit with handicapping and putting together ticket construction, that sort of thing. And like you said, we got a lot of betting 101, handicapping 101 stuff that's up on there and going to be continuing that for more intermediate and advanced players.
Nice.
I will say that those stat sheets you've been putting out are just wonderful. I really, really enjoy that kind of data because it's one of those things. Like, end of the day, there's so much data in horse racing, but there's not a lot of people that are giving you data that's actually legitimate. And it's oftentimes you'll see something, oh, there's a sample size of 5, or it's just crazy outlier situation that doesn't make any sense. And it's really nice to see, oh, hey, here's large number of samples that are real data. There's enough of a sample size to make it legitimate, and you're getting real track bias data, which is really, really, really helpful. And I think it's very good for the casual horse player. So very much appreciate you putting that kind of stuff out there. It's good stuff.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Yeah, and I always try to, particularly with like the winning trip stuff, I always put what the end count is so people can see like, okay, these are the percentages, but we're dealing with 38 races or we're dealing with 158 races, so you can get some sense of, oh, maybe this evens out, or no, this is pretty set in stone what we're seeing.
Yeah, I always, there's a product out there that it was pushed really heavily a couple years ago. You don't really hear about it too much anymore. Stats Race Lens, and one of the cool things about it, similar to Formulator, where you can go in and you can do a search and kind of figure stuff out. And at a certain point, I was like finding, ridiculous, like Joel Rosario and a turf route on the horse with the best last out, late pace figure, on the West Coast, and he's like, plus 75% ROI or something like that, right? But then like you look and it's a sample of like 11 races, and you're like, well, I don't know if that's really actionable, right? And like when you deal with data, right, you always got to talk about that. Like, is this data actually actionable, or is it just, a fun little tidbit? Is it something that you can actually bet on? I think that's always that can always be a tricky thing, especially like stuff like one of the ones that I think I always have a problem with is like the graded stakes stuff. Right. It's like, oh, this person's, 0 for 3 in graded stakes races. It's like, okay, cool. Like he's 3 tries. Right. And they were all grade 1s, and he was, using a horse that was, a listed stakes horse or something like. So, but I appreciate it. Yeah. I know Mark and we both look at the stuff you do. So,
yeah.
Yeah. And Josh, to your point, like that's a great example of like using Formulator and not like just using a number that spits out rather than looking at the context of the data. So like David Donk went through a really cold streak at Aqueduct and was like 1 for 49 or something like that, or 1 for 54, and was really bad. And but when you looked at the data, his horses were roughly running to their odds. He rarely ever had the favorite. He rarely had the second choice. Most times he had the 4th, 5th, or 6th choice. And guess what? They ran 4th, 5th, or 6th. And so it was like once he got a horse that was the favorite, guess what? The horse won. And so it wasn't, it was just one of those things. You got to put that data in context sometimes rather than just going, well, 1 for 54. because there's a certain trainer that I'm sure we'll talk about who's 0 for 26 at Gulfstream Park right now. So
there's another, yeah.
Again, yeah.
Yeah, the other one with that donk stat is if you want to look back, look at what he's done the last 2 weeks at Aqueduct, where his horses have been going off at prices and he's been winning at a very high percentage. I think he's like, it's crazy. He's like a 25% trainer right now. So, reversion to the mean. I mean, Donk's never a high percentage guy, but reversion to the mean and, his barn sort of finding form, which it oftentimes does at Winter Duct. So you can get some very nice value there with him with some random bug you've never heard of.
Yeah, and before we kind of get into the races here, it's really funny because with stats in particular, you gotta watch out for confirmation bias a little bit. The best story I can think of is we used to have this like fun little theory that David Donk always won on Sunday, and so I don't know where this came from. I think it was our buddy Tommy.
There was a stat that backed it up. That was the horrible
was
part.
it? But I think it was our buddy Tommy who used to always bring it up about David Donk winning on Sundays. And once that gets in the back of your head, and all of a sudden David Donk wins on a Sunday, you're like, there it is. There it is. It's like the aunt that says that she's psychic, right? And like makes 20 wild predictions, but the 21st one is right. And she's like, I told you I'm a little bit psychic. So
there was a stretch this summer and fall, or maybe during the summer, when the favorite won the opening race at Belmont 7 straight weekends or something like that. And I was like, well, favorite's going to win. Like, it didn't even handicap. Like, just bet chalk, first race. Like, just single it, and move on. But, yeah, it started to get a little silly. So
yeah, and that one's a little bit...
Are you contractually obligated to say Belmont at Aqueduct? Is that like a rule that you have to say that?
So luckily in the fall or in the spring or in the summer, it was actually at Belmont. So it was not Belmont at Aqueduct at that point. Okay. And so... but yes, we are contractually obligated to say that, and we're not saying. What did I see somebody say? Sarah.
That's terrible. There's like 3 of them I've heard.
Bellatoga.
Yeah, Bellatoga.
Yeah, we're not saying that. We're not doing.
What about Aqueduct?
Aqueduct is actually kind of cool. I like that. I don't mind Aqueduct because it plays with initials as well. So I like that.
Yeah.
I prefer turf ducking. So,
Well, because when they first went they first moved that Belmont meet to Aqueduct a couple of years ago. I remember I think I did something like Belmont is back, BAQ, and I don't know. Yeah. I thought it was funny, but it's the boring stuff that you think of that makes you laugh. You remember there, but so important note here. I listed this stream as the Pegasus Day Pick 6. Friends, and here we're gonna, before we get into this, friends, all right, please, whatever you do not bet the Pick 6 unless there's a carryover. For the love of God. Just don't. All right. On Sunday, they're going to have a force out. If it still carries through that, by all means, fire away. All right. But the reason we're talking about all 6 races here is because the 8th race starts the old turf pick 3 that is all the rage. So I thought it'd be good to talk about it in case people do want to play the turf pick 3. Although we are talking about the last 6 races, please, friends don't let friends bet non-carryover jackpot pick 6s, okay? But race 8 here, and if you did listen to our podcast, Drinking Champagne, obviously this was one of the races that I did a bold prediction for, and my prediction for this race was that Chad Brown was not going to win it. Speaking of our aforementioned 0 for 26. I just really don't like the horses he has in this spot. I think they're going to be overbet, and they're going to be horses that I'm going to try to get around. And luckily, this race is not part of the pick 6. So when I look like a fool and Chad Brown wins at 6-5 or 7-5 or something like that, I will not be knocked out of anything. Maybe the turf pick 3 if I play that. But yeah, Andrew and I talked about this race a little bit on drinking champagne. I didn't really do too deep of a dive in here, so I'll just talk a little bit about my top pick in this race, which is the 7 Verstappen. Showing up here. And this is just a really, really cool horse. If you kind of look at this horse's last year, I mean, with the exception of the Man of War, this horse basically danced every dance it possibly could, and ran very, very well in basically every single race except for that Man of War. And I think that Elkhorn, obviously, where he won at a big price, is probably the standout race last year. That Turf Cup that he ran at Kentucky Downs was a pretty big race because that track was absolutely speed favoring, and Get Smokin' wired that at a big price. So I think if you look at some of the horses in his PPs, like Get Smokin', Masterpiece, who's going to be running later in this card, I think he actually finds a softer spot here. I mean, who are you worried about? A noted money burner, Stone Age. I mean, that horse just absolutely hates to win. I guess the one horse who is going to be your morning line favorite, Francesco Clemente, makes a bit of sense. But I mean, Chad Brown shipped this horse out west, and he couldn't win a stakes race on the West Coast. I mean, that's like a Monmouth Chad Brown horse if I've ever seen one. So I will definitely put my money elsewhere here. So I like Verstappen the best. There's probably others I'll end up using, but Matthew, where did you kind of land here?
Yeah, it's interesting. We were very like-minded here. I certainly don't want any part of the number 3 Stone Age. Horse is 2 for 18 lifetime, and hasn't really shown much here in the United States. And I agree with you. I think the 1 is obviously his better chance, and we're referring to Chad Brown. But yeah, I mean, still a horse that's gone off as the favorite in all 3 races in North America and only won once. So, starting to get a little bit of a money burner reputation there as well. And so I landed on Verstappen as my top choice in this spot. Also, is a horse I think will like the 1.5 miles. And ran a really good race last time out. And I don't want to blame Declan Cannon, but I think just maybe mistimed that move a little and ended up getting caught there at the end by Masterpiece. And, one of those things. But I think this is a real nice horse, 9-2. It's interesting. Brendan Walsh also like a little bit on the schneid, 1 for 29. The difference between him and Chad Brown is his horses are at least finishing underneath. I mean, Chad's horses are missing the board in a lot of cases. Like they're just not even getting close. I think he's only 23% hitting the board, whereas you can look at Brendan and he's at least 50% hitting the board. So his horses are running. They just might not be getting home to win, but Verstappen at 9-2 is one that I absolutely like. And then a couple of other horses I'll just quickly mention. One of the things I do with track stats is I do look at those winning trips. 57% of 2-turn turf races are won by horses tracked in 3 lengths of the pace. So that sort of winning dirt trip has been very effective on the turf at Gulfstream Park as well. So I looked at a horse like Cellist, the number 8, as well as Grand Sonata, the number 9. 2 horses that have some nice early tactical speed, could find themselves sitting in, kind of a tracking to a forward mid-pack trip. And I thought, could end up having a little bit.
Oh, looks like we lost Matt.
Yeah, it looks like we lost Matt. Why don't you hop in here, Mark?
Yeah, no, I'll hop in here. Matt actually just gave out my top 2 picks. I have none of the Chads anywhere here. I think points that you guys have both made. The Chad Brown barn's really, really cold right now. He's over 26. His horses just really aren't running well. I think it was 6 for 26 on the board, which for Chad is an absolutely terrible stat. There's times at Saratoga where he's like 50% in the money. So it seems like his barn's off. These really feel like the C-tier Chad horses. I think all of his good horses are running around in a field in Kentucky somewhere off for the winter, and this is sort of what he has left in the kicking around in the barn. They're going to take money simply on the fact that they're Chad Brown horses, but the 2 horses that that I landed on were, first off, the number 8 Cellist, who I think can wire this. He is controlling speed in here, and honestly, I don't think there's a lot of other speed signed in this race. He should inherit the inherit the lead. And Marty is really smart. He's a very talented jock. I think he can get the lead and probably slow this down and control this pace off the front end. And he does have a win going this trip. And I think that win going this trip may have been actually at Gulfstream. So, at a track that likes to carry speed, I think Celis makes a ton of sense at the price on top. And the other horse was another one that Matt mentioned is the 9 Grand Sonata. He's 2 for 3 across Gulfstream. And he's a horse that if you look at those 2 wins, they were both sitting just off the pace and with a stalking trip. That's exactly what he's going to inherit today. He has to prove that he can get this a little bit longer distance, but I don't think there's any reason to believe that he can't. And so I think both, Celis and Grand Sonata are very interesting prices in here. And I guess when I capped this whole card, I had a lot of questions. Was it simply the morning lines are bad, or was I just finding a lot of prices? But if I get those kind of prices on those 2 horses, I would be very, very excited to play both.
All right, Matt, I think you're back. You were talking about the 8, you were talking about the 9. Anything else that you wanted to mention in here?
No, I think that's those were the 3 that I really wanted to touch on, the 7, 8, 9. So I think Mark covered those 2, and you're right. Cellist, he's a versatile horse, but I agree with you. I think he probably takes the lead here.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think Chad Brown should be very concerned about Verstappen though, because obviously 7, 8, 9.
That was horrible. Absolutely terrible dad joke.
And no one's walking out like I did on Andrew yesterday. So,
no. So I think one other horse we should probably mention, or there may be a couple more, but I know Josh and I, when we were talking about this race beforehand, talking about some of these also eligibles in this race. And, there apparently are a couple of scratches. I think the 6 and the 11 are already announced as most likely out of this field. And I think
6 and 12.
Or sorry, was it 6 and 12? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I can't read my own handwriting. But the horse that Josh and I were both really kind of gushing over is the 16 horse F5. Another horse that has a ton of tactical speed. Brian Lynch's barn is absolutely firing right now. Horse has a win across this surface, going 2 miles of all things. So gets the cutback of things you'd never thought you'd see in a 12 furlong race, or say in a 12 furlong race. Seems a really interesting player here. Now he gets a start in the parking lot, but I'm less worried about that when you're going this far. And seems just a real interesting horse. Figs fit. At a price, I would absolutely, I'd be very excited to use him. And he just has to create a trip. But with Louis up, I'm less worried about that. The other horse I thought was real interesting here was the 13 starting over the, I think, other maker horse, who Oysten Murphy of all people seems to hop up on. Horse is perfect going this trip. Won the Colonial Cup. Yes, it's a Colonial, but also, kind of fits in here. Seems to be in much better form after coming out of the Falcone barn, and seems like another horse that would make a lot of sense in here. In a field that I think is a pretty wide open affair.
Yeah, I think those 2 make a lot of sense. And I particularly the 16 on the far outside. I mean, Lynch's barn is really firing right now. So that was one. And you figure Louis is going to be super aggressive, and that horse has good tactical speed, and if going to be able to cross and clear a lot of horses going before that first turn. And I would imagine that you will see, if he doesn't take the lead from Celis, then, we'll be sitting right off and we'll be kind of secured. And it's not like he's going to get parked wide. Some of the horses we'll talk about a little bit later in the Pegasus World Cup, I think, that are parked on the outside have a much taller task ahead of them than this one.
Yeah, one note from chat. It looks like our buddy Russ Neese, who we are going to see in Vegas in a couple weeks, he likes the 11 Anglophile here. The other Brian Lynch horse here. You get John Velasquez aboard. Looks to, has a win over at Kentucky Downs, and then does have one run over here. I believe it's I forgot what race that is, but does
Bay.
have.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And the Tropicana Derby as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So he, he looks. I mean, he looks interesting. I think he's that P type, right? He is that tracking type horse that maybe kind of shows up here. I do kind of agree with Mark when he was talking about the pace complexion. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of pace, which is kind of why my eyes did go to this 16. I think this 16 looks like the type of horse that wants to go this distance and has the speed, is a speed type horse for it. So you get Luis Saez aboard, who I think is probably top 2 or 3 turf jocks on the lead, if I had to guess. So yeah, I really love the 16 if he draws in. But I think he's gonna need some help. There looks like there's 3 early scratches that are already, they're cross entered in a race over in Texas that we cannot bet on. So knowing, I don't even know what I think it's probably the JB Connolly or whatever, the turf race there. So all right, moving on. Race 9. All right, guys, now you can bet. All right, now you can bet these next races in order. All right, the pick 5 here. The inside information. We're going to be going 7 furlongs, the old unicorn distance, presented by Don Julio Tequila. Matthew, is that Don Julio in your glass?
It is not. It is Sauza, but it is tequila. So
There you go.
cheers.
I figured, dude. I was talking to Andrew yesterday, and I was talking about the Barrel House where we met up for a drink.
Yeah.
Do you remember that tequila the guy poured for us? The well tequila.
Yeah.
Do you remember the name of it? Because I completely forgot.
I don't remember.
It wasn't half bad. And he's like, yeah,
it was good.
It was great.
Yeah, it was some brand I'd never heard of. So it's really funny. I did mention to Andrew, I was like, yeah, it's the first time I'd seen Matthew not dressed up, and it was a bit of a culture shock. Like it was just like a jolt to the system there.
It's like you're one of my former students who then sees me out at a bar a year after they took my class, and they're like, Professor DeSantis, and I'm like, please, no autographs. I need to get out of here.
So this race, grade 2, 7 furlongs, fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up. And I did what I normally do, which is I look for the E and the 8, the 3 cherry special here in Sassy Nature for Jack Sisterson. This is a horse that has shown speed on both on 2 surfaces, both turf and dirt. As a 2-year-old with Luis Mendez, showed a lot of speed on dirt, and even into his 3-year-old season there, and then obviously made the transition over to turf, and was a pretty good turf sprinter. I mean, he won a couple of optional claimers there. He ran well in some listed stakes or state bred stakes. So, it's a little interesting that they're putting this horse back on dirt, but he really does seem to be the speed of the speed in this race. Does seem to be, I think the 8 Gerrymander is another speed type, but Gerrymander is shown a little bit more of a propensity to, concede the lead if somebody is going to go a little bit faster. So I really do think that Sassy Nature drawn inside of the other speed horse, I think he's just going to go. And for my sake, I hope he just keeps on going and no one catches him. So my lone A in this race is Sassy Nature. Mark, where did you kind of land?
I also really like Sassy Nature in here. Now, my main concern is, does Oyson Murphy know how to ride a dirt need the lead sprinter? And I think there's a couple question marks there. The other horse that I really did like in here as well is the horse for course, and that's the 9 Mary Quit Contrary, who is 7 for 9 across the across the Gulfstream surface, has never missed the exact at this track. She just kind of shows up and gets it done consistently again and again. So I think she's obviously a major player in here. They have her 2-1 on the morning line. That's probably fair, honestly. She's gonna have her work done for work cut out for her. Work cut out for her in the lane. I think in this race. I think this race came up fairly decent given the level. And but I think between the 7 and the 9, I have I have the 2 horses that I think are the the ones I need to have in here.
Matthew.
Yeah, so I think the 7, I'm kind of worried about the distance. Very good turf sprinter, but you're looking 5.5, 6 maybe for long sprints, and now you're going to that very unique distance of 7 furlongs. And I just wonder if that horse fades a little bit late. And it's not as if it's the only horse that needs the lead. I think that, you look at the number 5, Music City Star. That's a horse that has some nice early speed as well and could, try to get out there as well and want to kind of press a little bit of the pace. But yeah, I think Mary Quite Contrary at 2-1. That's another horse I looked at. I think makes a lot of sense. Mark said everything that I was kind of teed up to say because it horse for course. It does well at this distance as well. Has 4 wins going 7 furlongs, which is impressive. Likes to sit off the pace, and I think which I think is advantageous for 7 furlongs because I think those 6.5 furlong sprinters, that last half furlong really gets them. And that's where Mary Quite Contrary can kind of plow by them. And this is a horse that ran some really nice races. I mean, it ran a really good race, going back to the Madison behind Goodnight Olive. And ran, I thought, pretty well 2 out ago, even in the grade 3 against Three Witches, and then obviously won last time out. So I do like that one. And then the other one that I'm interested in is actually the 10 to the outside, Olivia Darling, 4-1 for Jorge Delgado with Irad Ortiz Jr. aboard. It should be pointed out, just because Chad Brown isn't winning doesn't mean Irad's not winning. Irad's just winning without Chad horses, which makes his percentage all the more impressive, actually, I would argue. So that's a horse that, again, is going to be forward, doesn't need the lead from that outside post, is going to be able to slot in kind of where she needs to. And I think could get the right type of trip and might be a little bit ahead of Mary Quite Contrary. And so might get the jump, so to speak, on the leaders going the distance. So that's one that I was a little bit interested in as well. But yeah, 9 and 10 for me. I'm not a big fan of the 3 Intrepid Daydream in this spot. And I'm not really sold on the 1 either. Bluefield at 6-1. And I am all the way out on Gerrymander, the 8. And it's not just because of Chad's slump, but that's a horse that I just don't think he knows what that horse is or what that horse wants to do. And you can tell that by looking at the running lines. He's trying to figure it out just as we all are. So, maybe that horse turns out to be a great 7 furlong sprinter, but I just, it is anyone's guess at this point.
Have they tried that one even shorter, like going 6?
I don't think so. No, I think 7. Oh no, well, in a maiden, yes,
maybe
maiden
way
6
back.
furlongs.
Back, yeah. I wonder, I mean, I think at this point, right, if they really don't know. I mean, obviously won that stakes race, but that was an absolute bog. That was a match race, and
and what was so funny is Chad tried so hard. They drew that Noble Damsel 3 times for the turf, and it kept getting rained off. And Chad kept entering this horse, trying to get this horse on the turf. And then it ended up being just like a 2-horse match race on the turf. But it was very bizarre.
Yeah. I don't think there's really much else, unless Mark, you got something else you want to talk about in this race. I thought this one was pretty straightforward. I'm going to take the speed. I'm trying to get around 9 here in this race. Mark obviously taking the chalk. The more things change, the more things stay the same. Pegasus World Cup Filly and Mare Turf Invitational. So I did just get some late breaking news about this race, I believe. Wait, is it this race? Never mind. It's not this race. It's the other race. I think it's the main race. Did you guys know that Warm Heart is retiring after this this race?
I did not know that.
Yes.
Yeah, Warm Heart, and that's the and is already got is planned to go straight to Justify. So that's I for some reason I thought it was the Filly Mare race, but I guess it's the main one. But we'll talk about that later. I had the just wants to be a mom alert all teed up for that. Race 10 here, the Pegasus World Cup Filly Mare Turf. Mark, I'll let you go first. Where did you land here?
My 13-1 just got home at Delta. Sorry. I'm just
it's fine. Okay, Mr. Red Board. It's fine. Hey,
I
my
posted it in
4 to
chat.
5,
You could have
my
paid
4 to
attention.
5 got home at Turfway Park. Let's go.
When you're 13-1 noses out the 8-5 favorite at the wire, that's always a good thing.
By the way, did you guys see there was a 1-5 at Turfway earlier tonight? That's the
No,
craziest thing I've seen all the week.
that's wild.
That there's a 1-5 at Turfway. That's insane. And lost, of course.
Yeah. Jeez.
Oh man, no, I think this entire sequence is tough, and I sort of felt like you need to find a race where you can get a little bit skinny if you're playing a pick 4, a pick 5, something like that. And I think for me, this was sort of the race to kind of do that. Star Fortress absolutely freaked in that last out at Churchill. Now it's Churchill, and their turf is known to be a little suspect. The figures came back huge, but is that race legit? If it is, the horse is an absolute major player in here. But her run style does kind of scare me a little bit. So I went back to, I'm sure, the same horse Josh is on, and that's the 9 horse Dadia, who I just have the world's biggest soft spot for her. She is as honest as they come. She brings her A game every time she steps on the track. There's no way in hell you're getting 6-1. You get about the world's biggest jock upgrade from Vinny to Jose Ortiz in this race. I think, and I think Jose actually should fit her like a T, because she needs to be kind of forwardly placed. And he's a very smart, very tactically savvy type jock. So I think there's just a ton to like with her in here. And yeah, I mean, she's my top pick. I think it'll be an interesting race if that last at a Star Fortress was actually a legitimate race. I don't really know if that figure is real. But I think those are your two major players in here. And I think there's a pretty big drop off. And if I went any wider than 2, I needed about 10. So I think I'm gonna just leave it with those 2 and go from there.
Yeah, Mark. The only horse I have written down in this race is Didia. This was my best bet of the card on the podcast yesterday. And Mark mentioned basically everything I was going to say. The jock upgrade. I mean, this is just another honest horse. Just goes out, and obviously last time out was just in over its head in that race. But I mean, basically ran in every race that she possibly could, showed up and won most of them. So, and with Vinny aboard. So, I mean, I don't know. I think that might just, I mean, maybe it's like, like running with ankle weights on or something, maybe, now we're going to see the true unleashed power. I don't know. But, no, I think Didia makes a ton of sense here and is going to be the only horse I use. Matthew, where did you land?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you guys in some ways and maybe divert in some others. I also toss Star Fortress. So I just toss Star Fortress entirely. I don't trust that fifth speed figure. I don't trust that performance. The very infamous Churchill Downs turf. I don't know. I'm still waiting for Santon to win another race on that horse loved the
Ouch.
Churchill Downs turf, and I love Santon, and I won a lot of money on him, but that's the bottom line is he's a product of that sort of track, and so I don't know. I mean, if that speed figure is real, then she wins for fun, but I just don't think it's real, and I'm willing to kind of bet against it and play against it. Like you guys, I ended up on Dadia as well. It's a horse that we've talked about. I know I've talked about with you guys before on this show. Love this horse. I mean, I love any horse that just packs her bags and travels, and it's just like, yeah, line up the starting line anywhere, and I'll run. And she handles all sorts of different surfaces. She's been working down there. I really love this horse a lot. I do think Fluffy Socks is kind of interesting. We were talking about Chad earlier. I think it would be funny if Chad broke his first streak with a horse that likes to finish second all the time in a horse like Fluffy Socks. But that's one that's going to really come from the clouds a little bit more, but does have some tactical speed with Irad aboard. And then the other couple of horses I'll mention very quickly. Brittany Russell's got a horse in here, Full Count Felicia, 10-1. it has really good early tactical speed. I don't know if that horse will necessarily get the lead. I actually don't think she will. I think that'll probably go to the number 3 Accomplished Girl. But Full Count Felicia could sit kind of a nice tracking trip potentially, and is coming off a win at a mile over this turf course last time out. So that's something which I like, and has been working out great down in South Florida. And then the only other one I'll mention very quickly, and maybe it's just my soft spot for Mid-Atlantic trainers, but Grand Motion's horse Mission of Joy. I don't like the post position number 11, but that's a horse that I think that last effort in the QE2 Cup was huge, running behind Mauge and Lindy and running a huge speed figure. And that's a horse that I think you look at that last speed figure from a buyer speed figure perspective, 98 looks a little bit of an anomalous figure. But if you cross out the race that sent her to the bench in the first race back, then you look at the progression and it makes a lot more sense. And Motion's very good at getting horses ready off the bench. She's been training great in South Florida. You get Johnny V stays aboard at a price. So at 10-1, that's one. I don't know if I'll use that horse in my tickets in terms of like a pick 5, but that's definitely a horse I'm going to use in my verticals for sure.
Yeah. And Mark, anything else you want to add in this race?
I think you guys, Matt covered the other horses that I was interested in, with the exception of the also eligible. I thought Be My Sunshine was somewhat interesting. Seems to be her form is actually improving as a 4-year-old. She's never missed the exacta at Gulfstream, and she needs to take a bit of a step forward, but sometimes these Safi horses do that. You're getting Paco. She's gonna be forwardly placed. There's enough of enough angles that I don't think you get that 30-1, but she's the kind of price I would have somewhere, kind of as a saver type ticket type. But she's a little interesting.
I think Ed DeRosa put out a fun stat that I don't think Safi Joseph hasn't won a race on Pegasus Day yet. Like, he listed like a bunch of other trainers along with Safi.
Wait, did Pegasus get moved to Kentucky? Is that why? Like, what's going on?
Oh,
Wait,
that's rough. Ooh.
Man.
Ooh, that's rough. Well, but the thing is, Safi can win at Kentucky Downs, just at no other track in Kentucky.
Right. That's absolutely true. Absolutely
Which is
true.
the most backwards thing to say ever.
So nuts. It makes no sense at all.
It makes no sense. None.
I'm seeing if I can pull up the stat real quick. It was interesting. It was just like something I didn't. It might take me a little while to pull it up, but there was another horse that I was a little bit. I was thinking about, and it is this West Coast horse, Ruby Nell, coming in here. Has shown a lot of speed. And is going to be stretching out a little bit. I mean, has run a little bit longer, but obviously has gone wire to wire, going a mile on the turf out west. And I mean, last time went 22 and then 45-3. Unlike what we sometimes see at New York, where the pace is very measured. We'll say. Up front on these turf races, I think that you get more honest paces out west, and I don't know. I mean, I think this maybe if Frankie, gets out there and people fall asleep, maybe one that can possibly steal it on the front end. I don't know. Did you guys take a look at this horse at all, or is it West Coast and just toss automatically?
It's not West Coast and toss, because I think anytime Richard Mandela ships a horse out of California, you have to take that horse seriously. Like, that was my entire angle on Go Rocket Ride in the Haskell, was like, well, he doesn't ship to New Jersey often. Clearly he thinks this horse has talent, or else he just keep it out in California. I ended up not using it, but you get Frankie aboard, and crazier things have happened. So I definitely wouldn't sell this horse's chances short, for sure.
Yeah, I found a tweet. Ed DeRosa tweeted, Pegasus World Cup Day at Gulfstream Park isn't for everybody. Trainers Dale Romans, Safi Joseph, Ian Wilkes, Rusty Arnold, Pat Biancone, Michael Matz, and Roger Atfield are combined 0 for 120 on Gulfstream's richest day of racing.
Wow.
That's nuts. Especially with Safi's strike rate in Florida, the fact that he's never won a race on Pegasus Day is pretty crazy. But yeah, let's move on here to the Fred Hooper. Where we going a 1 turn mile here, grade 3, race 11 here. Matthew, where did you kind of land?
So in the Fred Hooper, this was kind of my tough race from like a ticket construction standpoint, because I think my gut instinct is to either single Hijazi or toss Hijazi, and I didn't want to do either of those two things, and that's a problem. And so, and so this was the race I kind of had the hardest time with because Hijazi can make a lot of sense. This is a good horse that Baffert has. Yes, lost last time out in the Grade 1 Malibu to stablemate Speedboat Beach. This horse kind of does run in place a little bit, but if you eliminate the 2-turn races, this horse really has never run a bad 1-turn race. So this horse shows up and runs, and it's going to be probably speed of the speed, particularly from the inside rail. Flavian's going to go with this horse and go hard, not try to hold back. So this horse makes a lot of sense. Part of me, I'm a little bit interested in Accretive at 5-1 for Chad. I think that getting this horse back on a good surface and getting back on a fast track will be beneficial. And I think is a horse that prior to that Cigar Mile was kind of throwing out really consistent efforts, even if coming up a little bit short at the grade 2 level. So I think, has the right sort of running style to track the early speed and then try to go by late. And that's been pretty advantageous. You haven't seen many gate to wire winners doing 1-turn miles at Gulfstream Park, actually, only 24%. For the type championship meet. So Accretive sitting that tracking trip would be beneficial. And then the horse that I just can't get out of my head, and it's because I have a soft spot for this trainer, is Signator, the 12 at 15-1. I will always ride for Shug McGahee horses. They show up when they're not supposed to. And this one feels like he's going to show up when he's maybe not supposed to. And I see, Josh, you have an A with a question mark, which is how I feel about Shug horses 99% of the time. So I'm glad that is a better encapsulation than anything else I could articulate. So, I think that is he's just a really interesting horse. I love the cut back to a 1-turn mile for him coming from off the pace. And I think could get the right type of trip from Javi on the outside post. And so at a big price, I really like him a lot.
Yeah, and just to kind of to touch on that, I landed on the 12. I have A with a question mark. Just to kind of talk a little bit through my reasoning here, just doing the quick pace analysis. Right, you got the 1 and 2 who are both going to want to go. You got the 9 who's going to want to go, and then you got the 5 and the 7 who both have a bit of speed here, and it just screams like, if a race is going to kind of melt, it might be this one, especially with the 1 and 2 drawn right next to each other on the inside on the rail. I mean, I think that really just like. That really can set this up for there to just be some shenanigans up front. I have 20% so far for the meet that's being wired, but obviously I think you probably keep better notes than me just reading what says on PP. It does seem like inside is a little bit better. So that was a little bit of a question for me for Signator being drawn all the way to the outside. I think this is a horse that Andrew talked about a lot, and maybe he talked me into it. But the more I looked at this race, the more I really liked the 3 Steel Sunshine here for Bobby DeBona and Paco Lopez. And I really like that October effort. Obviously, an optional claimer, and that's just kind of the type of trip that I think I'm going to want Steel Sunshine to have here, right? Sitting 4th or 5th, couple lengths off the lead, let whatever's going to happen in front of him happen, and then make that one run. Obviously, the Harlan's Holiday last time, he tried to make that same move but had to go 5 wide, made up some ground, but still finished fourth by 2 1/4 lengths. Maybe the extra half furlong was too much. Maybe the trip wasn't exactly what he wanted. I'm not sure, but I think the slight cutback here, coming back to that 1 turn mile, I think is going to be helpful for the 3 Steel Sunshine, and he's going to be a little bit more inside, so he's going to save a bit of ground compared to the 12. But really, the 3 and the 12 are the only 2 horses that I had written down here. I'm going to try and get around Hijazi in this spot. Mark?
Yeah, I think Matt set this up absolutely perfectly with this. What do you do with Hijazi? The horse is going to be very short. I don't like the horse here. Horse clearly doesn't like to win. They obviously substantially overpaid at auction for this horse and are trying to find, what does he want to do? Well, what's his thing? And I just think he's not that good. And I mean, he's good enough where he could win this, but I think if you were to catch anything classier than this, he's just not that good. Seems to sort of win when he's down in cheaper company. I mean, his wins have been at a maiden special weight and an optional 50, and just can't quite get it done in the black type stakes kind of things. But he's going to be real short here, and he's probably going to be shorter than that 8 to 5 line. So I think you have to go other places. And I only have 2 horses that neither one of you 2 guys really talked about. So first one is number 2, Expressman, who is the other speed, and it's going to be interesting. Todd off the long layoff, I would assume they want to make the lead, but they may inherit a stalking trip because a lot of times horses off a long layoff don't quite show as much speed out of the gate. Been working like a machine. Works have been very, very, very good. This one looks really live, and Todd is, Todd knows how to spot him, and I don't think he's bringing this horse back, putting him in this spot without this horse being pretty gosh darn live at a bit of a price. Horse has never missed the exacta at Gulfstream, and you're probably going to get every bit of that 8 to 1. And if you think that the pace in this race somewhat holds together, I actually like Expressman better than I like Hijazi. The other horse that I was really interested in is the 11 horse, Tumba Rumba, who absolutely no one also mentioned as well. This is a horse that, if you believe the figure that came out of that last race, that Louisiana Classic, the Fairgrounds, is an absolutely massive player here. When Brian Lynch goes to Louis Saez, good things happen. Louis been up 3 times on this horse, 2 of them for wins. This seems to be the trip. I think this one is primed and ready to go. And, I would imagine that Louisiana Classic, where the horse ran second, was more of a tune-up, and they were probably pointing for this race all along and getting Louis up. I think this horse is extremely well met in this spot, and probably ends up sitting, kind of mid-pack, but making that late move. And I trust Louis to make that move. Horses got continually increasing form. And I think he's just a major player in here that's going to get kind of ignored on the board due to connections. So I think Tumbarumba is also a major player in here.
Breaking news. Cody's Wish won Eclipse Horse of the Year.
Shocker. I mean, it's the wrong horse, but okay.
Oh, spicy.
Is the Sheik going to get thanked, Josh?
Yes.
How many times will the Sheik be thanked?
Yeah. Who do you think should have won?
I mean, kind of Arcangelo, right?
What? That's about the batshit craziest thing I've heard. What are you talking about?
It was legitimately, I thought, a 2-horse race, but I thought it was Cody's Wish or White Abario.
How do you get to White Abario?
I don't know how
he won the Classic. Isn't that the
best
pinnacle?
horse, not the best mile and a quarter dirt horse in a terrible.
Yeah, I thought you could make an argument for Idiomatic, who was a finalist, and I thought, despite Andy Serling being speechless, which I'll have to talk to Andy tomorrow to see if he's still speechless, but my suspicion is that he won't be, but that's a horse that was 8 for 9 winning this year. I mean, you talk about winner, like that's a horse that wins. And, up to the mark, I think, a hell of a turf horse that, just came up short against Europe's best and otherwise dominated American competition on the turf. And, but listen, I get it. Cody, this was a year for a horse like Cody's Wish to win. Story aside, even, this was just not a strong year for the Classic division. So you look to other divisions. Does the Distaff have somebody? Does the Turf have somebody? Does a Miler, as in the case of Cody's Wish, come in to win? So I get it. I also saw that Irad won Jockey of the Year, of course, and that Bill Mott was Trainer of the Year, which is always good to see
Bill.
Mr. Mott being recognized. So I was happy for that. But yeah, my hot take, I saw Goodnight Olive won female sprinter, and I was a little. I get it, I get it, but I watched her run against Echo Zulu, and Echo Zulu beat the shit out of her. So I don't know why. I don't know what's up with that. If I watched another horse beat the crap out of Goodnight Olive, I don't know why Goodnight Olive's the best female sprinter when I know she's not. So
isn't it sort of quality of work throughout the entire year and not one race?
It is. Yeah, it is. But I mean, Echo Zulu didn't do anything wrong up until she got hurt. I mean, that was, she was so good all year, and
she was.
But so again, I get it. That's not taking anything away from Goodnight Olive and her accomplishments. Back-to-back Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Sprint champion, but which is amazing. But I have a very soft spot for Echo Zulu, but I don't want to turn this into an Eclipse Award.
By the way, Matt, in your informal Twitter poll, I did put Auguste Rodin in there because
I love it.
Right.
I love it, and I'll be honest, for top 3-year-old. Part of me wanted to see Derma Sotogake as a finalist.
Oh, come on.
Stop it. Tell me what 3-year-old was close to White Abario. Tell me the 3-year-old closest to White Abario. If White Abario is the horse of the year, really in the Breeders' Cup Classic, Arcangelo didn't run. So Derma Sotogake was second. I'm just saying.
You said 3-year-old. You're 3-year-old versus older, but it's like, I mean, right?
Oh, goodness.
Come on.
PJ,
this is where we could turn into First Take on ESPN with Steven. Coming up next,
seriously,
how does Mark and Matt feel about Derma Sotogake?
We'll get back to Derma Sotogake real quick. I see friend PJ. He says, "Do we give any extra credit to Castle Chaos and Steel Sunshine aiming for the big one, not getting in, and then running here?"
Yeah.
I mean, I just like Steel Sunshine in general. I didn't even know he entered into the Pegasus. So, I mean, maybe they because now the Pegasus you have to pony up the money, don't you? So
I don't know about that, but yeah, but I mean, I definitely prefer Steel Sunshine between the two. So yeah.
I don't know. Mark disappeared. I think he went to go get another drink. So what's funny is with
I was going to say, Josh, sorry about that, but you used to have to pony up the money. It used to be $1 million, I think, or so there was a big whatever. You bought your slot to get into the Pegasus, and you could sell it, trade it, do whatever you wanted to. That is no longer the case. It is just a normal handicap race. Yeah,
gotcha. Did PJ, our buddy PJ, he said, asked if we gave any credit to Castle Chaos and Steel Sunshine for aiming for the big one and not getting in and running here.
No, I don't. I just don't. I don't think either of them are good enough. Yeah, they're running here. Cool, that's great. But I just don't think either one of them are good enough.
Okay. PJ, obviously, I think his boy Ocean's Reserve just won a nice race a couple weeks ago, didn't he? I'm looking at Matt, the Naira guy.
What's that? I'm sorry, Josh.
I said our buddy PJ Ocean's Reserve won a nice race.
And is in a stakes race is in the Rego Park, if I'm not mistaken, on Sunday. And I'll be honest, at 7 furlongs, there's not a lot I don't think that horse can do. That horse loves 7 furlongs. And so I was just talking about that race with Sarah El Badwi and started to handicap that one before I got on with you guys and love Ocean's Reserve. And yeah, that's it. It's so funny that we we're talking about in the previous race that unique distance, and that's a horse that just fits it to a T.
I will say that so when we visited Oceans Reserve, there's another, and I feel bad that I forgot the horse's name, but there was another horse that was a maiden. Just recently broke the maiden, but obviously broke his maiden after myself and Caleb and our buddy Mike fed him peppermints.
No,
So I'm just saying, right? If you got a horse that's a perennial maiden, you need to break the curse. All right,
this feels a lot like, and I love telling the story. This feels a lot like me wishing Aiden O'Brien good luck in the paddock before the juvenile Phillies turf with Meditate a year and a half ago when he had been 2 for 54 over the past 4 years. And then after I wished him good luck, he won 3 Breeders' Cup races that weekend. So it sounds a lot like me taking credit for another great man's.
yeah.
And so,
Lady Fortuna is who it was. Is
oh
the other
yeah,
horse, yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anything else on the Fred Hooper? No. Okay.
Nope.
Pegasus World Cup turf, and I mentioned earlier the morning line favorite, obviously the 9 Warm Heart, but I would be remiss if I didn't hit the old. We talk about this a lot around Breeders' Cup, but oh goodness, where's it? Oh, here it is. The just wants to be a mom alert. We talk about this around Breeders' Cup with the horses that come into Breeders' Cup that already have stud deals, and they know they're going to retire. And I don't know, it just often seems like those horses just don't always.
So you mean like Cody's Wish? That's what we're going with here.
I mean, he almost got beat, didn't he?
No, he didn't.
I thought didn't he? Didn't he only win by a nose? Am I misremembering?
And he still won. He
National treasure, right? But anyways, yeah, I don't know if that really changes my opinion of Warm Heart, to be honest with you, because I mean, this horse ran second to Inspiral at the Philly Mare Turf. Obviously, was winning Group 1 races overseas. Ran third in the Hong Kong Vase to Junko, who was my pick in that race. So pat on the back to me.
Go Josh.
Pat on the back to me there. But I don't know. I think that if this horse even runs a B effort, I think she's gonna be very, very tough in here. And really, the only way I see the horse getting beat is the only way I ever see a lot of the even American turf horses, nice turf horses, get beat, and that's the old no offense, Matthew, the old Naira Special, where on the front end you go 50 or 51.
52 and a half.
Yeah, that happens. I gotta tell you, man, JJ's horse Main Event, I understand we're talking a big jump in class, but did exactly that at the Fort Lauderdale. Got a 47-4, 111-1, pretty moderate pace, and just kept on finding and just held off
2 times in a row. Did the horse Main Event also did the Naira Special in Naira?
Yeah,
at the previous race.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So I just if no one else gets really aggressive, and I mean, maybe the horse too is outside catnip. Maybe they think that, hey, this horse has got to press the pace a little bit. But I mean, I think if Main Event gets a soft pace, obviously I have this horse written as a B, maybe more of a C type, but it's going to be the only other horse I use in this spot. But because I just that's always in the back of my head with these turf routes, like. I mean, if this horse gets it all his own way, I mean, yeah, if someone turns their brain off and just moves too late, or lets them just get away with murder and doesn't make like a middle move to kind of get up closer, I mean, it could be a little dangerous. But other than that happening and Ryan Moore just turning his brain off, I find it hard to see anybody beating the 9. Mark, where did you land?
Sorry, I'm watching this race at Delta where I'm gonna get knocked. God damn it. Out of a really nice
All
pick
right,
five.
well, yeah.
Well, that really sucks. No, so I think Warm Heart's your horse to beat, and I think you have to go really deep to beat Warm Heart. That Prix Vermeil was an amazingly good race. That field was very, very, very deep and quite stacked. So, I think she runs again, like I think you said it, Josh. If she runs her B race, she wins this pretty easily. She's just kind of better than this field. I mean, I think the only thing you worry about with Warm Heart is this a little sharp for her? She hasn't run this short of a race in quite a period of time, in almost a year. But she's just really, really, really good. And this is not a hey, we're shipping over a B or a C tier euro to try to cash a check. This is a situation where no, this is a legit world class horse. She's exceedingly talented. She almost beat Inspiral in the filly Mare Turf, who is probably the best filly in the best turf filly in the world right now. So she's a legitimate world class horse, and she should. This should be kind of the race goes through her. Let's put it that way. But I do agree with you. If she does get beat, I think Main Event is the horse that's going to do it. Who's won 2 in a row, really loves Gulfstream, ton of tactical speed. Can Javi get on the lead, slow this down, and try to steal one? Then that would be the only way I see her getting beat. Other than that, I think race really goes to Warm Heart, and she's probably one of the most likely winners I think on the day.
Yeah, Greg mentioning that the French runners were really tough at Hong Kong that day. Yeah, I'd really liked Junko in that spot. It looked like he, if I remember correctly, I think he went wire to wire, and it looked like there wasn't going to be much pace. If I remember correctly, it's been a while, but we did cover it on our other podcast, which is You Got to Be Shot-inning Me. Which may or may not happen this week because my friend Matt is actually got a cold and has lost his voice. So we'll see if that happens this week. But he came on late. But yeah, Matthew, anything to add to this race?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think Warm Heart is. You guys said everything you need to say about her, and she's so impressive and so good, and that Breeders' Cup effort was super impressive against Inspiral, and then I just marvel at a horse that shipped over to Santa Anita, shipped to Hong Kong, and now is shipped to Gulfstream Park in a period of 3 months. In the United States, we struggle to get a horse to run 2 times in 3 months at the same track. So I don't know. Maybe just better oats and water. I don't know. I mean, it's baffling to me to see how these Europeans can do this. And I'm not suggesting anything nefarious, despite my cynical kind of comment. I'm just suggesting they know how to handle their horses. And it's amazing to see a horse like this, who is truly a world-class horse, travel the world and run all over. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Integration, the second choice, just because it is the second choice. And it's a horse that's 3 for 3 and has won all 3 of its races by a combined 12 3/4 lengths, if I'm not mistaken. And, you talk about the definition of having never done anything wrong. This horse just wins and it looks really good and is working out beautifully down there for Shug. And this is a huge class test. There's no doubt about it. And you're not getting a huge price on this horse. And I actually think I've been debating this with Sarah. I think Integration goes off as a favorite. I know you guys are looking at me crazy. I don't know if you're aware, but this race takes place in Florida, and Floridians not known for worldly knowledge. And I say that having lived in Florida for 7 years. So what's this European horse doing here? I like a good American horse. And so I think that there's a better than average chance that Integration actually goes off as the favorite in this race, or that the gap between these two horses is very minimal. And so I think integration looks really tough in this spot, and I think this horse will run its race. And I know there's been a lot of discussion about getting Kendrick getting taken off the mount, which I don't like to see at all, because Kendrick has done nothing wrong with this horse, and now they replaced him with Tyler. So I don't like that. The only other horse that I'll mention is the horse that I'm afraid that I'll get beat by. But then I remember the horse never wins when it's supposed to, which is Webslinger at 15-1. And a horse that just always seems to find trouble and always seems to make this furious run late and win the gallop out. And everybody then goes, oh, integration should have won the race. Best horse running, if only, I swear, Webslinger's new name should be If Only, because that's what everybody says after the race. If only it didn't find the trouble, would have been great, and so it's a horse that just always seems to find trouble, though. And I just can't really trust that type of a horse to win this in this big of a spot, but is super talented and does have a devastating turn of foot when he gets in the clear. So that's when at 15-1, I'm going to be including on all my exactus trifectas in this race.
Yeah, Webslinger is a horse. I think that Webslinger is the other horse that you have to kind of talk about. When he shows up and brings his A game, he blows up the Kentucky Derby Day board at 22-1. But then he's he's sort of one of those horses that you want to catch him at a price, right? Like, because when he's short, he just never wins, and he needs a perfect.
He feels like a tone. Tone was like that for years and years. It was a tone when he was 15-1 was great. And then when he was like 7-2, he ran like crap. And so, it
was funny. When I was talking to Andrew, I'm scrolling. I told him, I was like, I scrolled through the race, and I'm like, why is Webslinger 15-1 in a graded stakes race in the U.S.? Oh, that's why. And then I saw that Warm Heart was in here, and because I was looking at some of these prices. I'm like, man. I was like, Masterpiece's last race was pretty impressive, and like you would assume that he'd be something like 3-1, 4-1 in this type of race, and no, he's double that price, because I do think Warm Heart's gonna take all the money. I mean, overseas obviously is going to be different. I'm looking at early odds. I see him at 5-4. 13-8, 11-8, or her, excuse me, and I see integration closer to between 5-2 and 4-1, and that seems a little bit more. That seems more correct, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, honestly, I would take Warm Heart probably odds on in here, and if doesn't go off odds on, I think is a bit of an overlay, which I don't really think you talk about too much with. Horses that are going to go off 6-5 or 7-5. So,
by the way, I hope that Rick Dutrow pulls a Bobby Valentine and just like comes out with a fake mustache and introduces himself as Sidney Dutrow, who is the new trainer of Masterpiece, who is of course Rick Dutrow's brother. And it's just like, come on, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing here? When I saw that, I was like, at first I was like, who is Sidney Dutrow? And then I Googled it, and then I was like, oh, okay. And then second, I was like, are we really doing this? I guess so. But yeah.
Yeah. So like, what happens? Like, does he just like chill in the stands and he's going to root anyways? Like, I don't know what.
I have no idea, because Dutrow Racing Stables just tweeted a photo of Masterpiece in his stall today. So like, clearly like, it's just like, talk about like just on paper only, so
is Dickey still banned from training in Florida, I'm assuming?
I don't think he had gotten his license renewed yet.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think he's banned,
can he get it renewed, or is he permanent?
He could, yes, I believe he could. Okay. Yes.
All right, let's move on to the final race. Once again, Matthew, thank you for joining us. Obviously, you can catch all his stuff he's doing on Naira Bets at Veil the Menace, at Naira Bets. I see you daily because you're always front and center whenever I log into Naira Bets and or my app. And you
very
got
embarrassing,
that,
but thank you.
You got that grumpy. You got that. I don't know. Like when you were taking that photo, You know, the
Yeah.
one where you're just kind of standing there and you kind of got the little
Yeah.
head tilt and you kind of got the really look on your face, like what was up with that? Were they like just look disinterested and bored and like you went with
Let me
that?
tell you can I tell you a 30-second story about that?
Yeah.
Um, it was my second day on the job, and they took me behind. They were trying to find a place where there was a kind of a nice background at Saratoga, but like a soft background. So like everything was going to be blurred out behind me. I was going to be in focus. Everything else was going to be blurry. But they wanted something with like, and they took me behind in the kind of not the paddock area, but like in the kind of customer area, like out in the lawn. Like I was behind the bathroom area, and there's just like, oh, there's some nice shrubs here. Stand in front of those and look at the camera. And I literally looked at the camera, and this very nice lady took like literally 2 seconds. She's like, okay, I got it. And like I was like, okay, and then that is the picture that is now used on the website. And I was like, I wish we could have had a second go round with this, or maybe a little bit more of a heads up. But
it's so striking because I always see you smiling. Right, you're a big smiler. You're always in a good mood. Anytime I've talked to you, anytime we've hung out, you're in a good mood. You're smiling, and I see that picture, and I'm like, man, they must have just told him not to smile. Like what in the world is this picture?
I think so, because I looked at everybody. I don't know if they tell people that, but I looked at everybody else's picture on the Naira website, and nobody else smiles. And so I was like, oh, I guess I shouldn't smile. I should just kind of have my lips, kind of making just the slightest resemblance of a smile. And I just remember feeling very awkward, because you're right. Like even on my driver's license, I have a huge freaking grin. Like I always smile when people take a picture. Like that's just my natural state. So it was very weird. But yeah, one of those things. And by the way, I should just mention very quickly, if you bust out of the late pick 5, we at Naira Bets, we have a $20,000 hit and split promo for the late pick 4. So if you bust out of the pick 5, you can go opt into the late pick 4. Naira Bets is adding $20,000 to the pot to add to the total. And if you hit the late pick 4, then you split that 20 grand with the other people who win the pot.
Nice.
You should also mention, Matt, that there is a pick 6 carryover at the Duck tomorrow.
There is, and by the way, nobody realized it until like literally 20 minutes ago.
I literally just popped on my feet. I was like, "Wait, there's a carry? No way!"
There is a pick 6 carryover, and thank you, Mark, for reminding me, because I'm gonna have to do a ticket now for it. So
I've never seen a pick 6 that I didn't carry over that I didn't probably go after. So yeah, I mean, I will
of
be.
Course, why not?
I would definitely be.
But for some reason, he was not interested in the Turfway carryover tonight. I don't know why.
Even I played the Turfway carryover.
There's a reason for that.
We're getting some rain overnight, so it is going to be, but it's going to be dry. It's going to be just cloudy tomorrow, no additional rain. So it's probably going to be a muddy track that dries out throughout the day, I would imagine.
Yeah,
cool.
I would agree.
Cool. All right. By the way, I am still live in this pick 5. I'm sure everybody probably still is, but I need 11, 13 in this race, and then I got 9, 10, 11, 13 in the last. So hopefully we get this home. Pegasus World Cup Invitational. Obviously, your morning line favorite is going to be 9-5, number 7, National Treasure, the Preakness winner. But I'm going to tell you, I'm fading, and maybe I'm getting maybe I'm getting too cute here, Mark, by fading the favorite once again. But where did you kind of land?
I will also be getting too cute and be fading the favorite, and National Treasure will be on none of my tickets. I realize with National Treasure, this is your Preakness winner. This is your 1G1 winner in this field. This is Baffer shipping in to, go after a big purse, yada, 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 all the things you want. But I've just never been impressed with National Treasure. That Preakness win was very nice. The only other win on the horse's career is a maiden special weight win. This was the yak for a while in the San Anita Derby. It just like I don't know. There's way too many shoulda, woulda, couldas with this horse that should have shown up and done the thing and been, the older and the handicap divisions are not that good right now. And I just, at some point you have to say, hey, there's just too many excuses, and I'm just done with it. I'm going to not use National Treasure, who's going to take a ton of money in this field for all the reasons, and I just want no part of. So yeah, so for me, I'm getting pretty damn aggressive, and I'm gonna use First Mission, who I realized was lost last out in the Clark, first time going long. I felt like First Mission had a few excuses in there. Ton of speed, can be very forwardly placed. You should give Louis a lot of choices. Horses 3 of 5 lifetime, and has never missed the exacta in all 5 of those starts. So a horse that really likes the winner's circle, likes to get it done. I think there's still a ton of upside for this one. Obviously, a lightly raced 4-year-old with only 5 starts, and Brad Cox just kind of shows up with live horses. This just feels like the spot. This field does not feel like there's anybody who towers. There's any sort of monsters in here, and I think First Mission should be able to kind of sit his trip. And I want the fresh new face. I don't want a lot of sort of other kind of horses that I think at this point in their career, I really know what they are. So I'm going to get very aggressive and be probably 90% of my money going through First Mission.
Yeah, I did see Greg here in chat. He said that he thinks that National Treasure's got that late bloomer type thing on like on his side. I think more so, I think that's true for a horse like First Mission. A lightly raced,
Yeah.
newly turned 4-year-old is one that I'm more interested in putting my money behind. Which, yeah, of the short prices is the one I'm most interested in as well. Mark made really great points. I will say that I am going to be using the horse that beat him last time out in Trademark. I have Trademark written down as a B here, and we talked about this on the podcast yesterday, but you look at the 2 Churchill races, and they are standout races. They fit here, but there are only 2 races in this horse's 22 race career, and they're both at Churchill Downs on the dirt going long. And is this just a horse for course? And once he gets off that Churchill surface, like, isn't going to want to run? I'm not sure, but if I'm going to get 15-1 to find out on beating the horse who I think is the most who's beat the horse that I think is the most likely winner in this race, I mean, yeah, I'll take a shot, right? So I like Trademark here. I have him as a B. I do have another A, which is a horse that you had mentioned earlier, Matthew, in Senor Buscador. And I really think that, like you said, yeah, I'm moving that effort up last time out because of just kind of being against the track bias. I ended up finishing second in that race. I mean, Hoist to Gold had all its own way on the front end. It got away with murder, and won. But when Aqueduct gets muddy, it's like its own. It's like a special like fifth surface. Like, it's just a different track, you know.
Yes.
So you just see the most random things, right? What I believe
Yeah.
there was like a horse. Oh man, I forgot who it was. Manny Franco rode it. But this horse was like running really, really crappy speed figures. All of a sudden shows up on this muddy track and like ran like I remember on the Timeform Pacecast they were talking about. They were like, we don't know what to do with this figure because this figure is coming back like a 130 something, and this horse was running in like 90s. Like I forgot the name of the horse. I'll have to
Yeah.
I'll look it up and remember it. But
Yeah.
anyways, you kind of I thought it was a good effort with the Cigar Mile. Obviously, Breeders' Cup Classic was in over his head. But won a nice San Diego. ran decent enough in the Pacific Classic, decent enough in the Awesome again. I think this is the horse that needs a pace setup. And I think he might get it here. I think there is a fair amount of speed signed up. I think First Mission does get that first run on everybody because I think he's going to be forwardly placed. But I think if for some reason this race falls apart, I think Senor Buscador at a big price could pick up the pieces here. I got another long price that I like. I think Mark likes as well. But Matthew, where did you kind of land?
Yeah, I have very similar thoughts to you both in that I think First Mission is a much. I would actually say First Mission should be the favorite in this race. I want no part of National Treasure, and I say that as somebody who told everybody and anybody who would listen that National Treasure was going to win the Preakness. I was on that horse since he was a 2-year-old and said he's better than Cave Rock. He's the best Baffert horse out of this crop. And so I've been a fan of First Mission. I'm sorry, National Treasure. But he doesn't pass horses. And here's the thing, he's not getting the lead. Because Hoist the Gold's getting the lead with Johnny aboard. So National Treasure's not getting the lead. He might not even sit second because First Mission might be a little bit faster. Grand Aspen could be a little bit faster. And we haven't even mentioned Skippy from post 12 in the parking lot. And Tyler's going to have to gun it from there. So, there's a lot of speed signed on, Josh, to your point about Senor Buscador maybe getting the right setup. You could see 4 horses out there pretty aggressive on the front end and setting very strong fractions early on in this race. I ultimately landed him as my top pick, Josh. It was your B horse, Trademark, as my top pick because I think he gets the setup. And I think he sits right behind that. And then maybe not right behind it, but he sits more of a mid-pack trip. And this goes back to, Mark, something you brought up at the beginning about a small sample size. It is a small sample size. There have been 6 dirt route races during the championship meet. And 5 of the 6 have been won by horses tracking from within 3 lengths of the pace. And so nobody's won gate to wire, and nobody's closed from more than 3.5 lengths off the pace, which is why I tossed Senor Buscador and why I lean towards a horse like Trademark, who should be a little bit more forward in that space. This is a horse that's continued to get better. I know what you mean, Josh, about the 2 figures at Churchill. But, the race prior to that at Monmouth was a nice effort as well. This horse has been on an upward trajectory. I think that Fayette is more of an anomaly than anything else. And I like what Victoria Oliver has been doing. I like that this horse has been down at Gulfstream Park and in South Florida, training for the last few weeks. So at 15-1, I'm willing to find out. I don't know if we're going to get 15-1. I think 10-1 is probably the number I'm looking at. But we'll have to wait and see. O'Connor is the only other horse that I would mention. I think that's a horse that's kind of interesting. Obviously won the Harlan's Holiday for Safi Joseph Jr., who is forever apparently on Pegasus Day. But what I like about O'Connor is that he's Senor Buscador, but with a twist. And the twist is the last 2 races. If you look at the last 2 races, he sat a mid-pack trip both times. He hasn't tried to close from the clouds. And guess what's happened the last 2 races? He's won. And so when he sits a little bit closer and when he's more of a mid-pack horse, he can get home. And this is a horse that likes to win. And, going back to his record before he came into North America, and I think is getting back on that track at 8-1, a horse I'm probably going to include in my horizontals in the late pick 5. But yeah, I'm going to go, O'Connor, Trademark, and First Mission is my top 3. And then I think there's a little bit of a drop off for me, at least.
So I got to ask, what do you make of Tyler getting off? Because clearly he had choice here.
He did. And it's a great question. And I wonder if you had told Tyler that he was going to be in post 12 if he had gotten off.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I don't know. Skippy is a really good horse and is the type of horse that, honestly, you could argue Skippy's the second most accomplished horse in this field. behind National Treasure, who has a grade 1 win, because Skippy has a bunch of grade 2, grade 3 wins, and really consistently shows up everywhere. And I wish we had more horses, quite frankly, like Skippy Longstocking. So I like the horse, but I hate the post position, and I just don't think you're going to get the trip at all in here. I just think he's going to get parked wide going both turns, and it's too bad, because I've grown an affection for the horse, but I don't think he's going to get it done today.
Yeah, I have one other question for you. Your stat about Gulfstream, do you know what average field size was in those races that were just off? Because
that's a good question. I can definitely get that figure and look it up real fast.
Yeah,
so if you filibuster, I'll get that.
Josh and I are experts at filibustering and loving to hear our own voice. Not quite as good as the one and only Andrew Champagne, but we're close to that. No, and I think Josh alluded to this earlier. Obviously there's a fair bit of pace in this race, and a horse that I know I think this is the horse that Josh was alluding to, at least, that we both like, is the 3 Dynamic One for Todd Pletcher. This is a horse that had trouble in both of his last 2, that Jockey Club and that optional 62. And, he's second off a really long layoff here. Clearly, that last out was not the intended race. That was a get a little base in him, get a little foundation. Is he really ready to fire here? And Todd is really good second off the long layoff. He's 30% with a positive ROI. Arad ends up here on a horse that he's got a win on, in the Suburban. And this is a horse that's never missed the exacta going this trip. Been working absolutely lights out. The works tab is just absolutely phenomenal. And, he's the kind of horse that probably needs a pace setup, but my God, is he ever going to get it in this race where there's a ton of pace up front? I really think, somebody like if you want to get away from one of the logicals and you're looking for a bit of a price, I think this race really sets up for somebody like Dynamic One, who's going to have a ton of pace to fire into up front. And it should just kind of, it's kind of trip out here. And I think it really, honestly could happen. The other horse that is sort of one of those other horses that I was really interested in is the 10 Il Miracolo for Antonio Sano. Hobby takes, jumps up on this horse. It's another one of those horses that can be a little bit off, can be a little bit tactical. Horse, is really, really honest. Those last, the figures from the last 4 races have come back and, fit very well versus field. And this is a horse that, really likes this Gulfstream Park trip, in the exacta 5 and 9 going here. Now, the one question is, does he want this specific trip? Doesn't have a win at it, but, it's a horse that I think and I think this one will get more lost than the 3. A horse at a price that I think is an interesting sort of outsider here in a race that, if you get past the 1 or 2 logicals, I think there's some, big price plays that are really interesting in here.
By the way, the average field size in those dirt route races was 7.6 horses.
Okay, that's legit.
Not small. They weren't like 3-horse fields, but not huge. It's interesting. Il Miracolo is an interesting horse. I mean, that's a horse that kind of has become a little bit better than I think what we thought he was going to be at one point. Yep. And Sanyo in South Florida is always dangerous. And so the connections have to be trusted in that space. Yeah. I think, that's a horse I'd be definitely looking at underneath. I saw somebody in the comments, Greg, I think in the comments mentioned, like, wouldn't Saudi Crown do well here? Saudi Crown should be like 3 to 5 in this field, based on what we saw him do at the fairgrounds. Mm-hmm. I mean, good Lord. That horse looks like a freak compared to some of the horses we have here. So it's interesting that I don't know, Mark, do you have Josh as well? Do you have any insight why Brad chose to run Saudi Crown there rather than come here? I mean, does he have overseas plans for Saudi Crown? I mean, what is the? I don't understand the logic not going to a bigger purse.
I think Saudi. I don't know which of the two, but either they're going to go Dubai World Cup or they're going to go for Saudi Cup.
That's what I had to assume. Okay.
Yeah,
he's going Saudi Cup. It looks like
he's going Saudi. I'd heard that.
Okay.
Saratoga meet last year, but I don't know which one they were pointing to. And if you're saying Saudi, completely agree with that. So clearly that fairgrounds race was just a prep race.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. Do you go for the $3 million race in Florida, or do you ship for the $20 million race in the Middle East? Well, it's kind of a no-brainer, eh?
I mean, I think Matthew's frozen.
Matt is just frozen in the permanently agreeing with me. I'm cool with that. I'm good with that. Yeah.
Yeah, while Matt gets that figured out, yeah, I mean, you kind of already mentioned about a dynamic one. Talking with Andrew about this horse, the interesting thing about this horse is you cross out the Jockey Club Gold Cup, where obviously something went wrong. I don't know what happened, and obviously had that long layoff, and that last race was a prep. I mean, I don't think there's another horse that I won't that we didn't talk about that I want to talk about, but this is an example. This doesn't seem like Todd doesn't. I don't think points a horse to this type of race off of a optional claimer, like that. If he's not well meant
for Todd,
this seems like a very well meant spot for this horse, and I don't think people. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting too into the, looking at the back races and the back class on this horse. But I mean, the Blame, the Suburban, the Ben Ali, those numbers. I mean, those all fit in here. So, you got two bad ones, but last one's clearly a prep, and obviously needed a layoff of well over a year for that the race before that. So. It's I just think this is a weird spot. And I'm telling you right now, I'm looking overseas. This horse is 50-1 on fixed odds. So if you know somebody, I would make a phone call and figure out how you could get 50-1 on
I know a guy, but he's in Japan right now, and that's a problem.
I know a guy. I know a guy in Sweden. I know another guy in England. We could clean up this market.
I see Sky Bet. Sky Bet has it at 50-1 right now, which is insane. Most other places have it at like 25, 28, 33.
Wow.
But yeah.
That's a dynamic one.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm curious. You guys are both higher on dynamic one than I am.
Yeah.
My concern is he feels like a horse who might need the 3 back rather than just the 2 back from the layoff.
Okay.
To run, when he got placed into an optional claiming race rather than the Harlan's Holiday, which is what a lot of people thought, well, he might go there to prep. You get placed in an optional claimer, you run 5th, don't show much. I just wonder if it takes one more race to get back into shape for him rather than just kind of the second race off the bench. That's my only concern, because you're right. You look at those races, back in 2022, this horse absolutely fits and makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I guess I'm going with the in Todd I trust angle. Here with him,
I get it. Yeah.
I mean, Todd spots them very well. He knows what he has. He's got a huge barn. He's very good at managing it. It just feels like this is the kind of horse that, he's not putting that horse in the Pegasus just to give him a rep, right? Like I think that horse is very well meant, and I've seen Todd pull that kind of angle where you're like, why is that horse here? And then suddenly the horse wins at a stupid price, and you're like, oh, that's why. Okay, cool. And it feels like that kind of horse.
Is there anything else you guys want to talk about in this race?
I think we got them. I think we covered the major players.
I thought you guys mentioned there was one other horse you hadn't talked about that you wanted to mention.
Yeah, Mark, was there another price?
No. For me, it was Dynamic One and Il Miracolo.
Oh, Il Miracolo. Okay.
Okay.
Going back to a different race though, there is a horse I want to talk about, because I forgot to mention this, and Andrew mentioned this horse on the podcast. This is in race 10, so we're going pretty far back. This is the Didier race. But the one Cairo Consort, and I don't know, Matthew or Mark, you guys have better memories than I do. How often does Ryan Moore take pickup mounts?
Almost never.
Less than
can't.
almost never.
I can't imagine.
This is the first one I've ever seen, and this is the first time I've ever seen where it wasn't a well-met mount.
And the thing is that when I was talking with Andrew, he's like, oh well, because he was talking about other jocks. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure he gets asked all the time to take pickup mounts, but he just doesn't. You just don't see it. I mean, he has 7 starts last year, and you got to imagine those are all Aiden horses. So, what in the heck is Ryan Moore taking this? Like, is it just a mistake? Like, is he not really going to ride? I know
it's
like
just a matter of like he's over for the day because he has to ride Warm Heart, and he's just like, and Todd's like, well, we might as well ask him if he wants to ride Cairo Consort, and he's like, well, I don't have a mount in that race, so yeah, sure, why not? Like, I don't know if it's just a matter of money or it is unusual, highly unusual to see him ride a pickup mount. I can't recall it in any field.
My biggest thing is when I look through the field of other jockeys who are on horses, there's nobody who on the regular at all rides for Todd Pletcher who's doesn't have a mount on some of their horse in the race. So I just really wonder, was this okay, Todd's out of his usual list of jocks he would put up, and therefore Ryan Moore happens to be here and he grabbed the mount? Like, I mean,
I get asking Ryan Moore. I get asking Ryan Moore but like I said, I'm sure he gets asked all the time, and he probably just says no, like, because otherwise you would think he would have more than just 7 mounts all of last year. Because I mean, he comes in for big days of racing. Yeah. I mean, you mean to tell me when he's riding an Aiden horse in the Saratoga Derby, he can't pick up 4 or 5 other turf mounts that day, like not even ride on dirt. We don't need a repeat of Mendelssohn here. But
the part to that question that really gets me, leading into where you're going, Josh, in the last year, he's never ridden a Todd Pletcher horse ever. Like, he's obviously Todd's got horses in all of those big races that Aiden's gonna be shipping over for, or Ryan Moore is gonna be riding for somebody else, and he's obviously there on the big days. Todd has a huge barn. He's never ridden a mount for Todd. So either it's a misprint or something weird happened, or I think Josh is sort of playing the maybe getting a little too cute here. But if you're getting a little too cute, I could think of worse places to get too cute too.
I just to me, it was just interesting because it's just not something that I'm used to seeing, right? I don't know what to do with this information. This information could be completely useless. It's just like one of those things where I was looking through the form and I was like, oh, and then I'm like, I can't think of a time that Ryan Moore picked up a pickup mount, and I don't know. It was just something that stuck out to me. On top of it, Andrew liked the horse. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but that at least kind of got the wheels turning a little bit. But yeah.
Well, and she's and it's interesting because I even saw Ryan on Stone Age, and even seeing Ryan riding for Chad felt unusual. Because usually it's just Ryan rides for Aiden and that's it. And so let alone riding for Todd. I mean, that feels incredibly unusual, and that's a horse I've, Cairo Consort. I remember that Swedish Chant where she just broke terribly and then just enveloped the field. Super impressive race, but it'll be interesting. I mean, she could, maybe at a big price. I kind of see where Andrew's coming from with that angle, but I don't.
Well, he likes the horse for different reasons. I just had seen that, and that got my interest.
Yeah.
And at least with Stone Age, right? Ryan's ridden the horse before.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
100%. Yeah.
It's also one thing if you thought the horse was going to ship or be in Dubai or something or one of those kind of things, but I don't think that's the case with this one, unless I am missing some sort of. There's just so many layers of. I get where you're going from, Josh.
It was just strange to me, and I forgot to mention it when we were talking about that race, so I just kind of wanted to come back to it because I know it was something I talked about on the podcast yesterday. But that's gonna do it for us. Matthew, once again, thank you for hopping on. Where can people catch your stuff at?
You can always catch me on the handle on Twitter or X, Failed to Menace. And obviously all my content, as well as my lackluster profile picture is on Naira Bets. So you can get all my content there as well. Stakes previews, long shots of the day, ticket sequences, evergreen content, handicapping 101, betting 101, all that good stuff. And then tomorrow afternoon at 3:00, I'll be hosting a Twitter live stream with the always fantastic Acacia Courtney Clement, where we talk about this same sequence and get her kind of perspective, because she's down there. And I think there's something to be said about that perspective. She's on the ground, she's in the barn, she's talking to people, and kind of talking about some of those maybe undercard races that we didn't talk about today. So make sure to tune into that tomorrow at 3:00.
Cool. And then obviously Mark is at Two Turns. I am at Cherry Drank. The pretty one who is currently flying Japan is at Caleb WVU. Obviously at wrong_lead for all of our stuff on thewronglead.com. Have a good one, everybody. We will catch you later.
12! 12! Let's go! Where's the fucking line? Come on! Yes! Yes! Yes!